Well, last year he won the IMCA Wild West Speed Week up in the Pacific Northwest and is the reigning 2024 Arizona IMCA Tour champion. Troy Morris III from Bakersfield, California is on the Beyond the Flags podcast to talk about all his successes this year, multiple trips to the Midwest already as he gets set to go for the third time to the Speedway Motors IMCA Super Nationals fueled by Casey's here in just a week or so, and hear about his journey from micro sprints into the Friesen Performance IMCA Modified. So that's coming up next. But before we get to the interview, make sure wherever you're listening or watching from, you hit the like button and subscribe so that you don't miss out on future episodes. Well, he's from Bakersfield, California, and he's definitely one of the young talents to come out of the Shaw Race Cars Western region. We're talking about TM3, Troy Morris III. Troy, it's always great to have a conversation with you. Obviously got to know you through the years out here on the West Coast, but also spent a lot of time with you in the Midwest as you guys have made several trips over the Rockies throughout the last few seasons.
Yeah, I like to move around as much as I can. I feel like the more you race and the more places you get to go to, the better you're going to get. So we try to travel just about as much as our schedule will allow us with work and everything like that. But yeah, excited to get back to the Midwest soon.
Well, and you have went, I know for the Dakota Classic Mod Tour, you guys were out there, but you guys were out there earlier, right? Or is that all one big trip, one big swing?
No, I was out there earlier. I went back to Iowa. I want to say it was in late May, maybe something like that. It's hard to remember. I'm not good with the months, but
yeah.
I went back to Iowa, picked up a new car, went up to Deer Creek with it, and went up to Wisconsin with it. So we were in Iowa, Wisconsin, and Minnesota for a minute. And then we came home, and as soon as we got home, we worked on everything, revamped everything, reloaded, and then headed to, I want to say it was either Oregon or it was North Dakota. I don't know. My schedule's so jacked up this year. Usually I'm better at that stuff, but
it's all good.
We've been all over the place, man.
Yeah, well, and it was great to see you guys back out for the Dakota Classic Mod Tour because I ran into you guys, as you said, for the IMCA Wild West Speed Week. Got a win at Southern Oregon Speedway on a wet and wild Sunday night.
Yeah, that was an endurance race is what that was. But I feel like that whole Oregon trip, I feel like I do decent at most of those tracks, but I gave a couple away this year. I feel like I should have definitely won at Roseburg and smacked the cushion a little too hard with 2 to go. And then I was actually coming to the front. I feel like I might have had something for one of the leaders at Wilmington and 2 and ended up popping the right rear. So I didn't have the best luck all of Speed Week. Like the first night, I got destroyed my brand new race car on the first night, and it kind of ruined my whole week for me. So, I mean, my chances at a championship kind of left on the first night. But I tried, we don't give up. And I'll take a third. It wasn't too bad, but I don't think there's anybody going to catch Colin after his week that he had. But, it's definitely good to see. It seems like I see you everywhere. We both seem to travel a lot with this IMCA stuff, and like little flashback to the North Dakota tour, or the Dakota Classic Mod Tour. Me and Chaz went up there, we were ripping around, and both of us struggled all week. And so it was almost an embarrassing trip to go on. We do so good all year, and we have such good finishes all year, and we race together. It seemed like all year we ran 1 and 2 a lot together, and then we go up there and we get our butts handed to us. But granted, there were some issues along the way that didn't help, but like I said, that's why we go out there. North Dakota is probably one of the hardest track surfaces to get a hold of I've experienced so far. So that's definitely why we leave, why we run over the mountains. You're only going to get so good racing your local competition every week,
Well, and I was going to say, was it the final night at Mandan at Dakota Speedway that you let Chaz drive one of your cars? I know that he was in Jeremy Ritchie's car, I want to think the night before at Southwest, but identical cars. I'm just saying, holy smokes, you guys, I think we're in the same heat race or the same B main. That was tough. One of you, I think, had a little like fluorescent yellow X in the 7, but that's the only way I could keep you guys apart.
Yeah, we did run the same car, and actually Chaz was going to run my car the night before also, before Jeremy offered up his ride. But Chaz found out that he had a really bent rear end when we went up there, so he struggled fighting that all week. And, sometimes it takes tracks like that for you to figure that kind of thing out. And I've learned the hard way too. So he was going to jump in my victory circle that night at Southwest Speedway, but then Jeremy, another Harris guy, because Chaz is a Harris guy, offered up his ride. And so Chaz tuned on that thing and ended up doing pretty decent towards the end of the night. But yeah, at Mandan, Jeremy ended up driving his modified because his stock car went down the night before. So Chaz hopped in my backup car and he actually beat me all night long. So that was fun. But found some issues with my car too. I mean, I found the last night, I was doing pretty well at Southwest and then got into an incident with another driver and I got up into the wall a little bit and it bent a bunch of stuff in the rear end that I didn't catch at the racetrack. So when we got it back to the shop, I figured out what was wrong and had to cut some chassis bars out of it and fix some stuff. So a lot more was broken than I thought, but Chaz got in my car and the only difference on the cars was my dad actually had taped over the X on his car. So he got rid of the X on Chaz's car. Yeah. So, I mean, definitely not easy to tell the difference. And because I do the bodies on both cars, they're very similar. But, yeah, no, that was cool for sure.
Well, and what's really cool about that story is obviously Chaz, the defending national champion, current point leader, and you're also running up high in regional points and national points. Logic would say, all right, cool, this guy's out and stuff, but that's not racers' logic. Racers kind of go against that thinking of, hey, let's get you racing. I want to beat you for a national championship or regional championship on the racetrack. I don't want to win this by default.
Yeah, I feel like if there's no way, just me personally, I know, like you said, a lot of racers are like this. I never want any win given to me. Mm-hmm. And so the more you fight for it, the more rewarding it is. And the relationship me and Chaz and his whole family and crew have is, it's more than just at the racetrack. We're actually really good friends and, it would be kind of, I believe in karma. I believe in what goes around comes around. And so if I ever had a situation like that, I'd really pray that somebody would offer up their ride for me. So it'd be really awful of me not to do the same.
Well, 2024, obviously noting that you're top 10 in national points entering last week and top 5 in the regional points, 10 wins, and a big one recently at Bakersfield, the Mike Mosher Classic. Not just for the meaning behind that race and listening to your interview of how important the Mosher family, Mike Mosher, was to a lot of people in Bakersfield, but to win at Bakersfield, you've been close so many times throughout the years, and you've won there before, but to get this one probably was a bit of icing on the cake.
Yeah, I feel like I had a curse, man. I even put on my social media that the curse was broken because I mean, I don't necessarily avoid that place, but I don't get to run there as much as I used to. I'm traveling all the time. And so I've raced there 3 times this year. I got second the first time. I led every lap almost every lap until the last one. I gave it away on the last lap. I smacked the fence and let Jake Pike go and get the win. And then last time I was there, I started dead last and got the second. And then the race was cut short and over. And then this last time, I finally feel like I got the weight lifted off my shoulders. The race I had won there before was just a weekly show. Nothing crazy. Granted, it's still a win, and I was super grateful to get my first win there. But growing up at a racetrack, watching your dad win there, watching your friends and family go there your entire life. I won there a lot in a mini dwarf, the little junior division they have there. And then to show up in a modified and just absolutely suck and get second and third constantly was like heartbreaking. And so I had to break the curse. So it was super emotional, or just, super gratifying. Like I got up on the roof. I thought I was going to put a hole through my sheet metal and, the crowd went pretty crazy. So it was cool to experience that, especially at the home track. So yeah, it was a big deal for me.
No doubt. And that's a great point you make is the Bakersfield culture. There's been so many names to come out there, whether it's in the local scene, in the California scene, the Western region scene, but even the national scene with a guy like Ethan Dotson to win the Harris Clash twice and a former Super Nationals champion, to Brad Pounds and your father, Troy Jr., and just so much talent coming out of the modified ranks. It's just amazing what that area of the Central Valley has produced, not recently, for decades.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because California, it's not exactly the biggest state for racing. It's nothing like Iowa or Nebraska, but there's some underrated drivers that have come out of here, and I feel like they're finally starting to get some stardom. Like, Cody's not from Bakersfield, but Cody Laney, raced here every weekend. And so he cut his teeth here, and Ethan Dotson, like you said, cut his teeth here, and Kyle Heckman cut his teeth here, and Jerry Flippo cut his teeth here. And, even guys like Colin Hibden have raced here, Ricky Thornton have raced here. So I don't know what it is about Bakersfield or the Bakersfield Speedway, but it builds and breeds some pretty decent drivers based on statistics. It's an aggressive place. It's definitely not for the weak. It's elbows up, rough and tumble, get it on kind of racing. So I don't know what that teaches you, but it definitely teaches you to stand your ground and not give an inch. So, there's certain things you take away from everywhere you race, but Bakersfield for sure has put out some really good talent, I believe.
Now, for people that don't know your story or your journey, it wasn't the typical starting in a stock car deal. As you said, you ran mini dwarfs, but you also took the route through micro sprints.
Yeah, went straight from mini dwarfs to restricted micro sprints and moved up to non-wing and outlaw and went and ran stuff like Clay Cup and the Tulsa Shootout and traveled around quite a bit, raced in Colorado and Arizona and stuff with micros. I was a big sprint car kid growing up. Not like I disliked everything else, but for some reason, when we'd roll up to the Speedway when I was younger, before I could race, and I could see the wings poking up over the fence, I got pretty happy. And so from the time I was a little kid till even now, I still love sprint cars. And I'm not biased. I'm not one of those guys that I'm a late model guy or I'm a sprint car guy, because I've seen the best in both worlds so far, So, but sprint cars in that side of the world, yes. In micros, like I said, went to the Tulsa Shootout, made a couple features like the Outlaw 55 lapper at the Shootout and ran top 10 there, and then moved up to USAC midgets and ran some local USAC Western State stuff. Didn't get to run too many races in those. Midgets got a little pricey for us. So, and it's a little different, my dad My dad raced modified since I was growing up. So he knew way more about IMCA Modified than he did about a USAC midget. So, he told me one day, he's like, you know what, son, we gotta start looking at some modified stuff, because I definitely know what to give you in that to make you successful. And I started screwing around a little bit in his Larry Shaw car back when he had it, back when he was only racing 5 or 6 times a year, because I was racing so much. And we went to Colorado in 2020 to run a COVID race, because it was the only place racing during that whole scamdemic. And I had a lot of fun. It was a little 3-day show on a bull ring in Cortez, Colorado. And I told him, I says, Dad, I really like this thing. And the next day he ordered me my victory circle, my first victory circle. So that's where it all started. And I really fell in love with the division, fell in love with the racing, the racetracks I get to go to. I've made really, really good friends and connections along the way, whether it's friends that I just see at the racetrack or sponsors that help me out with products and stuff like that. But it's a little different. And when I first got into the modified stuff, I still had to break a bunch of old habits I had from the midget and the micro. So learning how to drive the car a little bit straighter, different paces on restarts, little things like that. Some stuff has still stayed with me. I'm kind of known for knocking the wall down and backing it in and being more up on the fence than around the bottom. But that definitely came with me from my past, to tell you what.
Well, no doubt, definitely an exciting division and a real good breeding ground, and just guarantee that guys that went the micro sprint route in the Central Valley, which was one of the toughest regions in the country when it comes to that. You've got the Macedo brothers, Carson and Cole. You've got the Selzy brothers with Giovanni and Dominic. And then you've got Mitchell and Michael Facento. Corey Day, guys that no doubt you grew up watching race and some raced with, the likes Jake Hagopian, and, just a sensational amount of talent that has come out of Plaza Park Raceway in Visalia and the Lemoore Jet Bowl just over the 98.
Yeah, it's crazy to see. I get to watch the high limit races or the World of Outlaw races and point out to my friends, like, hey, I used to race micros with that guy. You know what I mean? As like, I owned a Celsi car. We went to Fresno to Celsi Enterprises and picked up a car from their race shop back when they were getting out of micros. And I got into one for the first time. And so it's like, it's pretty cool to see, like you said, Corey Day and those guys and the Celsies. And then you got people like, Dylan Bloomfield, who's running really well right now in sprint cars here on the West Coast. And, I got to race with a lot of cool people in the micro class, stuff like Levi Hillier, who's up in Oregon right now. When I got out of micros, or Washington, my bad. When I got out of micros, he got into micros. And so it's kind of cool seeing the circle of, I don't want to call it the circle of life, but the way it works, just as I got in and as I got out, I saw a lot of talent come and go. And it's definitely cutthroat. You know, when you go to the Tulsa Shootout and you have all the states competing against each other, the top 3 states every year are California, Oklahoma, and Pennsylvania. You got the D1 guys, you got the Sawyer guys, and you got the Hyper guys, you know, and it really shows you the talent that comes out of this Central Valley area, up and down with stuff like Speed Week and the Mark Gopin Memorial and the Jet Bowl Classic at, you know, Delta and Dixon when it was still around. The California micro scene definitely breeds some good drivers. So I feel like, you know, I've gotten pretty lucky to be in a position where I am. You know, most people don't think California is the ideal state for racing compared to something like the Midwest. And you look at guys like Logan Seavey, Justin Grant, Logan Seavey, Justin Grant, Kyle Larson, they all moved out to the Midwest, and, you know, that's when their careers really took off, but they all got good and started right over here in California, you know?
Yes. And Jade Avedizian, another one. She's just been fantastic in midgets the last couple seasons.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I got out of my career, she was still in restricted. So it's pretty crazy to see her progression, you know. People like Dominic Gordon, who's out there killing it in a sprint car right now. I got to race with him a little bit. I mean, the Torgersons are up in sprint cars now. I got to race with them. Joey Ancona's up in sprint cars now. I got to race with him. I got to race with Ryan Timms at the shootout. You know, I call Ryan Timms a friend. I got to race with people like, you know, Christian Gardino back. He was a micro legend over here in Mitchell Moles, and Ben Worth and the Worth family, you know, stuff like that. I got to race with people like CJ Smith every weekend. And, you know, so I got to cut my teeth with some of the best, I feel like, that have been in micro racing over here. And so it's definitely super cool to see that.
Going back to your racing resume, as you kind of said, you like to move around. You're not necessarily a points chaser, but you have won some championships to your credit. Last season, 2023, you won the IMCA Wild West Speed Week up here in the Pacific Northwest. And then this spring, the Arizona IMCA Tour that they rejuvenated and brought back from the dead. You did very well in that in the winter and spring months.
Yeah, I definitely am not a points guy. You know, I can't commit to a racetrack. I can't even commit to a region. So it's points aren't really on the board. You know, it's really cool to go win a tour race like that, especially because I get to go be in the Race of Champions coming up here at Super Nationals. But you know, if you can win the points deal, it's even that much more gratifying or more satisfying, you know, because when I got back to Oregon this year, it's last year's champion, Troy Morse III, you know, it sounds really cool. It's really cool to hear. You get to be on all the posts and posters and everything, which is cool. But if you can get the points, I think it's really cool. But I try not to focus on them because it adds another layer of pressure. And I already put just about as much pressure as I can take on myself to perform. And so the added pressure sometimes doesn't help. But yeah, I'll take them when I can get them for sure.
Are you looking to find that adrenaline rush, but you can't because you're not at the racetrack? Well, check out the IMCA TV Replay subscription library to have access to thousands of hours of racing for just $24.99 a month. Relive all the moments of the Speedway Motors IMCA Super Nationals fueled by Casey's at Boone Speedway, the Harris Clash at Deer Creek Speedway in Spring Valley, Minnesota, the IMCA TV Winter Nationals at Cocopah Speedway in Somerton, Arizona, Florida's Clash on the Coast, and dozens of Speedway Motors IMCA weekly racing program racetracks from across the nation, as well as the IMCA TV Dirtcast podcast. Plus, 25% of that $24.99 monthly fee goes towards the Drivers Point Fund and is a great way to help out your local racers. In 2023, over $97,000 was paid out to IMCA drivers directly at over 50 racetracks across the country. Please note that live broadcasts are not part of the replay subscription. That's IMCA TV. IMCA TV, where America comes to watch racing. The number 07, what's the origin story of that?
So back when my dad started, I just took his number. But back when my dad started, he was 007. He doesn't know why. He just thought it sounded cool, but he was 007. And then somebody had 007 at our weekly racetrack, so he had to go to 07. Well, then when we'd go to Vegas and stuff like that, there was always an 07. And so he said, screw it, I'm just going to throw an X on there so I can stop changing my number. And I mean, you know, most people have a cool origin story behind their number, but he kind of just did it to make sure he didn't have to change it at special events. But it's kind of stuck. I've always loved the number 7. You know, it's a lucky number 7. And X is totally random, but it's one of my favorite letters, so it worked out. But there's not really a super cool story, just the fact that my dad was tired of duct taping letters behind his 007 to go race every weekend.
007 license to kill. Sometimes you have to have that license when you're racing. So
Yeah, right. Especially growing up in Bakersfield or racing in Bakersfield like we did.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Dog eat dog world sometimes. Yes, yes. Well, speaking of the letter X, Dax, where does that come from? I don't think I've ever asked you that question, but sometimes it'll be Dax Morris. Is that just to differentiate from you and your dad?
Yeah, in a way. So it's my middle name's Dexter. My full name is Troy Dexter Morris III. And when there's three of us around, it gets a little confusing. So my grandpa always went by Troy. My dad goes by TJ for Troy Jr., and I go by Dex. And then it kind of just worked its way into people's lexicon. So I only used it around family and friends. When I'd go to school, I was Troy. When I'd go to the racetrack, I was Troy. And then I got close with people like Jerry Van Sickle, and now he calls me Dexter or Dex out on the racetrack. I know people like even our local announcer here, Solely, he calls me Dex on the racetrack. So it kind of just depends. It's in my Instagram bio. I say some people call me Dex. It just depends. But it's just my middle name, just to differentiate between the three Troys we got.
Yeah, no, I know how that goes. I'm named after my dad. We have different middle names, and appointments and bills and all sorts of stuff like that. It can get confusing if there's no middle initial there.
That's for sure. Like recently I had an insurance issue where they tried charging my parents and not me because of the names. And then my race pass, when I go to check in at the racetrack, sometimes they're like, which one are you? I'm like, just look for the photo of me. That's how I say it. Yeah. Just look for the photo of me. But yeah, it's, we all have the same exact name to a T, Troy Dexter Morris. So it's really confusing.
So here's a crazy story. When I turned 18, which would have been 2005, not to expose myself as a dinosaur, but I remember getting something in the mail. It was like U.S. Bank. My parents banked with U.S. Bank, and it had my name and my mom's name on it. And I'm like, man. And for the long, it's one of those things you put in the back of your mind of, that seemed kind of important. No matter. Right. Fast forward to like 2018, and I'm trying to buy my house. My wife and I were trying to purchase our home for the first time ever, and the bank says no. He already has a loan or something. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, I never signed anything. They had me down for, at that point, almost, I don't know, what of that, like 13 years. I was getting all this monster good credit or whatever, and then having to call, my dad had to call, and my dad, when it comes to calling people, where you're put on hold and you're dealing with people in a call center. He's not the greatest, and I don't blame him, but yeah.
That's hilarious. That is hilarious.
So there's everybody's, if you're thinking about having kids and thinking of naming after, yourself or somebody, make sure you differentiate somehow. So
right.
And all that great credit that I quote unquote had, it went. I mean, I still have decent credit, but like I had super gold platinum status, and that got blemished a little. So.
Oh, dang it, dude.
Oh, man, yeah. But one thing that I really like about you, and when I go to places, and obviously you're not everywhere I go to, I see a lot of TM3 gear, whether it's sweatshirts or hoodies or even lanyards and stuff. And what's really cool, and I think there needs to be more of in the IMCA world, and this isn't a swerve at anybody, it's just a challenge, so to speak, is building a brand. You've built a great brand, like you said, social media, and you have all these outlets to get your name out there, get your image out there, and present yourself to where when they say TM3, they know who they're talking about. They're not talking about like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie. They're talking about Troy Morris III.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. It's funny that you say that, too, because it's kind of been a goal of mine to put up a personality that everybody can appreciate and enjoy, the all smiles, the positive attitude, the outlook on life that I try to have. I try to make that the main, like the head of my brand, air quote, brand. But yeah, the social media and everything, the outlets, I constantly post because sponsors like it. My name, I'm trying to push my name out there as far as I can go. I'm going to do this for a living. This is going to be my career. Mm-hmm. I've dedicated my entire life to it up to this point. And I'm going to keep going, and God willing, I have faith that I'm going to do this as a career. There's nobody other than God himself that's going to stop me. So my goal is to push out my name as far as I can go. and like the merch and everything. That's why my number is unique looking. That's why people think it's kind of a 2 sometimes, because no matter what color I have on the car, as long as you see that number, you know it's going to be me. So if I show up in different states, people are like, I recognize your car. I saw you on social media. It's like, yeah, thank you. Because, that number, nobody else has a number that looks like that. My dad hand drew that, I don't know how many years ago on an Illustrator computer program, and just stuck that way ever since. I give out free lanyards, like you said. People, I walk around and I see them hanging out of people's pockets. They put their keys on them, and it just gets my number out there. It gets my sponsors out there. I try to sell as much merch as I can. I'm kind of bummed I'm not going to have any at Super Nationals this year. Kind of dropped the ball on that, but trying to get some new merch coming in soon. And yeah, I'm just really trying to push the brand out there. And I agree with what you said. The brand is an important part of racing, especially because it gets the fans involved so much and it helps spread the word. But I agree, man. It's pretty cool having a air quote brand out there,
Yeah. I mean, I think that there is room for the future of, you see it in some other divisions, some upper echelons like NASCAR, and even, some stuff from the world that you came from sprint cars. Guys are having their own podcasts now, or some sort of, delving somehow in social media, with maybe like a YouTube short show or something. And, again, just a challenge because it expands the exposure of what IMCA racing is, which is wonderful and great. And it gets it to new eyeballs of people like, I don't know anything about IMCA racing, but this person is really cool to see his journey to go from track to track, or from where he came from to where he wants to go. Your story, be a professional driver and do this for a living. And they get to take that journey with you. And then when you show up, it's like, it's like your hometown driver when you're in the middle of the Midwest somewhere.
Yeah, it's really cool. Exactly. It's like I go up to just a track that I enjoy a lot, Interstate Speedway in South Dakota. Chase Alves and Shelby Albers run that place now, and it's a gorgeous facility, great racetrack every time we go. But I go up there and I have some people that just, remember me and cheer me on like I'm a hometown hero, and I get to go up there once a year if I'm lucky. Mm-hmm. I have constant people messaging me, whether it's through Snapchat or Instagram, stuff like that, from all over the country. When you coming back? And something I'd really like to do would be to start a YouTube channel. If I could just find the time and find somebody who's willing to record for me, carry a camera around, something like Tanner Holmes does, something like the Hunt the Front guys do, something like T-Mez does. Because then you could, like you said, follow the journey, see me go from track to track, state to state. And I feel like I travel just as much as anybody else. I've already ran more races this year than the entire World of Outlaws series has, the sprint cars. And so it's like, I feel like people would be interested in seeing something like that. So, I think it's good exposure. Like you said, I'm really good friends with Michael Thing. And when Michael Thing was racing every weekend and had his YouTube channel, we'd go to Iowa, and he had people coming up from Iowa to his trailer to get merch because they saw YouTube videos, and so it's something fans can look forward to. It's a kind of a behind the scenes perspective. You can kind of see what we go through on the road and what our off days look like when we're maintaining the cars, not racing, so I feel like it'd be really cool to get something like that. I just kind of got to figure it out.
Exactly. Well, when you're not trying to figure things out of building your air quotes brand or working on race cars or traveling to races, what are some things that you like to do that you enjoy that isn't racing related?
It's funny because I don't get much time to do anything but racing or work these days. But if I have a Sunday when I'm done washing in the mornings, I have a really good friend that lives across the street, a buddy of mine I've been friends with forever. We used to race micros together, and we'll try to go fishing, or we'll go hit up a local golf course and screw around. So just little things like that. I spend a lot of time on iRacing. It seems like just perfecting or practicing different things. iRacing's taught me a lot. Maybe run up to a casino that's 18 and up and just hang out, play some blackjack with my friends. I don't really get to do too much. I work during the day, during the week, and then I'm in the shop at night, and then I race on the weekends. And so it's, I don't have it. Like I said, I've kind of dedicated everything I got to this. So I don't get too much free time, but when I do have some, it's usually fishing or golfing, something like that.
I just thought of an idea. So, nobody can copy our ideas. It'll be imitation after that. We need to get a hold of Brett and develop an iRacing patch for IMCA, or a game that would feature IMCA drivers and IMCA tracks. And then that can get all sorts of kids that may not go to race, may want to go to a race.
That would be amazing.
Patent it.
That would be so cool.
Yeah.
That would be so cool. Dude, if you could get like, if I know it's not cheap and nothing ever is, but if you can get iRacing to Boone and Marshalltown and have them scan those tracks and then scan a IMCA mod and stock car while they're at it, it'd be something like that would be so cool just to push, that would be so cool, dude.
Yeah. Oh, we'll have to talk. We'll corner them at Super Nationals and talk about it again. Yeah. If we see something pop up of some development here in the next couple days, we, hey, we patent it on the air here. So
yes, exactly. We put I trademark that right now.
Exactly. That's property of Rick
yeah,
and Bobby.
We can, yeah, right, dude. Right. If we can corner Brett, I know he's running around like a chicken with his head cut off at Boone, but it's funny because I just messaged Wade Onger. I love that dude to death, and it's cool when I get to see him at Super Nationals. And I was talking to him. I had an idea. I've always loved the broadcast side of motorsports. I've loved the play-by-play announcing, analyst point of view, infield interviewing, et cetera, et cetera. And I always feel like I've spoken decently well. I used to practice my interviews in the mirror. I feel like I don't. It's kind of something I've always enjoyed. I've always wanted to try play-by-play or be up there in the booth and watch you guys do your thing. I've always had huge respect for announcers and stuff like that. And so I texted him. I was like, "Hey man, it's a long week at Super Nationals, and I have a bunch of downtime on my days off. Maybe we could do something like Jerry does with, like he did it with Charlie Medford this last year at Gateway. Just I don't know, like Caleb Montgomery just did up in Chico for the Gold Cup. I was just messing around with him, but it'd be super cool to be on to be able to." I don't know, give it a driver's analyst point of view. If Jerry or Ryan up in the booth don't really understand something the driver's doing for a certain reason, they'd be, oh, hey, I have experience. I've done that. You know what I mean? It's just, I've always wanted to be on a mic somewhere. So like when I get to get an interview done with Wade on the infield, when he's asking me which spoon I pulled and everything, it's just, I try to soak it all in. I love being either behind the camera or on a mic. So I was literally just talking to Wade the other day, or I sent him a message on Messenger, talking about that. So something like that would be super cool too.
Awesome. That's really cool. And it brings a unique perspective to it. Like I've worked with some color commentators that don't announce a lot, but they've raced a lot. And just the amount of value they're able to put in is more than I could do, even just researching and watching film and stuff, because you almost have to do it. It's kind of like when I was back in my wrestling coaching days and stuff. It's like, guys, I can explain all this stuff to you of what this move's supposed to do or what this is supposed to feel like. You just have to do it in order to get the correct, I'm missing the word, but you know what I mean? Like the correct description.
Yeah, the perspective on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the perspective on it. Yeah, it's I know Jerry and Ryan and you guys all do your research, and you guys have done this for a long time and you understand a lot of things, but every now and then I feel like there's a spot where I could, it's so hard to give you an example, but I see it on the TV and I'm like, if I was there with that guy, I could explain what that guy just did on the restart. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you hear a play-by-play announcer, he's like, yeah, I'm not really sure why that happened. And I could be like, I know. You know what I mean? I think it would be cool, because then the fans at home, the thousands of people that get to watch Super Nationals could be like, okay, that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like I can watch a million times somebody with a bad vibration and the wheels jerking out of his hand because he's just trying to hold on. He's got a wolf by the ears, but you can tell me what it's like to have a wolf by the ears, and I'm sure it's not very fun.
Oh, yeah, I could tell you it rattles your teeth out, and I could tell you probably why he's shaking. That right rear wheel cover that flew off 3 laps ago, his right rear is packed full of mud, and now he's unbalanced. And, yeah, it takes away, when the car's shaking like that, your mind goes away from driving, and now you're just focused on finishing. You kind of forget what you're doing. Yeah, it's exactly like taking, whatever you said, taking the something by the horns or wolf by the ears or whatever. It's exactly what it is.
Holding the Christmas tree on the spider shaker that gets all the spiders out and everything.
Yeah, right. That's exactly what it's like.
Well, this has been a delightful conversation, Troy. It always is whenever we get a chance to meet up and talk. I know you're a busy individual, but I wanted to give you a chance to thank people that have gotten you to the point where you're at now, as well as all your wonderful sponsors and marketing partners, because I know that you've got a great supportive group of people that make sure that you're able to do this and enjoy it, and also continue that path to make this a profession for you.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. Yeah. First and foremost, I thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Lord first, God first, always, above all things. Couldn't do without him. But my dad, I really got to give all the credit to my dad with this racing stuff. He works hard to pay the bills, and he works hard to help me race. So it's couldn't do without him. He basically only works and races just as much as I do. So he sacrifices a lot to keep me on the road. And then my mom's right there behind him, supporting me every step of the way. So I couldn't do without them. And like my grandparents have been a part of my racing career my entire life. They're not even in the state of California anymore, but they're watching every weekend back at home where they're at. And then I got to thank people like Accelerated Urgent Care for being on board with me these last 3 or 4 years. Butter Pasta and Deli, Advanced Fine Contractors. I got to thank Troy Morris Trucking and Chris Stevenson, the Magic Man over at Stevenson Suspension. I have a really good relationship with him and Victory Circle Chassis. And I got to thank TE Emerins, Hyperco Springs, Weir's Suspension, Guild Transmission, CPT Shocks. I got a lot of people that get me up and down the road every week. It's definitely not easy, so I take everything I can get, and I really, really appreciate all of you that support me along the way.
Well, awesome. We'll be seeing you. You'll be boon bound here before too long, and we'll have to catch up and chat in the pit area here in a couple days.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see you guys soon.
Well, race fans, that does it for this interview. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope that you continue to enjoy these upcoming interviews. We appreciate it if you would like and subscribe wherever you're listening, whether it's on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, wherever it's at. Give us a like and give us a subscription so that we can deliver more of these great interviews to you for your listening pleasure. In the meantime, wherever we're at, wherever you're listening, we hope you have a great rest of your day and a pleasant evening, and we will see you soon here at Highside Racing Promotions.